In their present form, these bombs are now in production, and even more powerful forms are in development. It is an atomic bomb. It is a harnessing of the basic power of the universe. The force from which the sun draws its power has been loosed against those who brought war to the Far East. We have spent more than $2 billion on the greatest scientific gamble in history, and we have won. But the greatest marvel is not the size of the enterprise, its secrecy, or its cost, but the achievement of scientific brains in making it work.
The Manhattan Project was the gateway to the atomic era. The project led to the exploration of uranium fission, exchange between scientific communities on an international scale, and prompted a turbulent political climate as the ethics of harnessing nuclear energy was fiercely debated. It all started with one letter, August 2nd, 1939. To F.D. Roosevelt, Sir, this new phenomenon would also lead to the construction of bombs, and it is conceivable, though much less certain, that extremely powerful bombs of a new type may thus be constructed. A single bomb of this type, carried by boat and exploded in a port, might very well destroy the whole port together with some of the surrounding territory. I understand that Germany has actually stopped the sale of uranium from the Czechoslovakian mines which she has taken over. That she should have taken such early action might perhaps be understood on the ground that the son of the German Under-Secretary of State von Weizsäcker is attached to the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin, where some of the American work on uranium is now being repeated. Yours very truly, Albert Einstein. With Einstein's letter and the warnings of other physicists that Germany was already working on a nuclear program, President Roosevelt responded by assembling the Advisory Committee on Uranium on October 21, 1939, to investigate the issues and possibilities of the creation of uranium-based bombs. The committee later found that uranium would provide bombs with a greater destructive force than anything known to man. The conclusion encouraged the committee to fund Enrico Fermi's and Leo Szilard's research on fission chain reactions at Columbia University, and explored different isotope separation methods like high-speed centrifuge, gaseous diffusion, and liquid thermal diffusion. Then, in June of 1940, Roosevelt reformed the advisory committee and it became the National Defense Research Committee, headed by Vannevar Bush, who only reported back to FDR. The NDRC retained the same responsibilities as the advisory committee and allocated more funding towards the research of the 4 possible separation methods. Later, Roosevelt formed the Office of Scientific Research and Development, also known as the OSRD, which superseded the NDRC. The US and Germany were not the only countries working on the atomic bomb. Great Britain had discovered the critical mass of uranium-235 in 1939 and already had their nuclear committee, known as the MAUD Committee, set up in March 1940. Britain's lead in research became key to the Americans because in July of 1940, the US and Great Britain exchanged key research that showed how destructive the atomic bomb could be, and also symbolized 2 world powers collaborating with one another. With new intel and research, on October 9, 1940, Roosevelt approved the building of the atomic bomb and subsequently the atomic program, which later would develop into the Manhattan Project.
On December 7, 1941, the Japanese fleet launched their attack on Pearl Harbor. This prompted the US to enter World War II. The atomic program's focus was no longer researching the potential of nuclear bombs, but rather being the first to build the bomb for war. Named for its initial headquarters in New York, the Manhattan Project came under new leadership, most notably under General Leslie Groves, who advanced the program greatly. The project had 3 goals: to develop more efficient techniques to separate uranium isotopes, to explore plutonium separation, and to design the bomb. These goals were pursued by international teams of scientists in cooperation with Britain. Many notable winners included Albert Einstein, J. Robert Oppenheimer, Enrico Fermi, Niels Bohr, and also included were some of the less recognized scientists such as Cheng Sheng Wu, John R. Dunning, Otto Frisch, and many more. Based on the initial findings from experiments with different uranium separation methods, Groves only allowed Lawrence's electromagnetic separation method, Columbia University's gaseous diffusion method, and the Navy's thermal diffusion method to proceed to building of plants for enriching uranium. Groves also allowed Fermi's plutonium isotope separation reactors because using plutonium would allow the use of less uranium. With the approval from up top, various plants, reactors, and government sites were constructed in 1944 and were scattered throughout the US. These sites included, but were not limited to, the Philadelphia Naval Yard, where thermal diffusion was experimented, Hanover, Washington, D.C., where the plutonium production plant, Reactor B, was located, and Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where many plants, including the Y-12 electromagnetic plant, the S-50 thermal diffusion plant, the X-10 plutonium pile, and the K-25 gaseous diffusion plant were built. These plants and reactors focused on constantly enriching both uranium and plutonium. The enriched materials were then transported to Los Alamos, where Robert Oppenheimer and his team of Nobel Prize-winning scientists drew up bomb designs. Scientists of all different fields were needed to process the enriched elements into metals, shape it into the correct sizes, and assemble the bomb. Finally, on July 16, 1945, the implosion-designed plutonium design was tested and detonated on the Trinity site in New Mexico near Alamogordo. It was at this point in history man entered into the atomic age. Oppenheimer recited from Hindu scripture, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The United States of America had become the strongest nation in the world, with the power to unleash all hell on its enemies. With the successful storming of Berlin by Allied forces, Germany was no longer a threat, and U.S. Central Command shifted its focus on Japan.
On August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay B-29 Superfortress bomber dropped the uranium gun-type bomb nicknamed Little Boy on Hiroshima. 3 days later, on August 9th, a second B-29 bomber, the Bockscar, dropped the implosion-type bomb, Fat Man, on Nagasaki. The bombings destroyed the two cities and inflicted over 200,000 casualties on the Japanese people. The bombing of Japan encountered major controversy against the US and President Truman because of heavy civilian casualties. Many scientists petitioned Truman to not use the atomic bomb for war in fear that it would lead to a political greed of power and tensions with the Soviet Union. Scientists who once supported the research of nuclear energy condemned the use of nuclear warfare and even resigned from the Manhattan Project once Truman declared it would be used on civilian cities. Major scientists like Szilard and Einstein tried to convince Truman to reconsider the bombings, but it was too late. Truman reinforced his decision by stating that it was his duty to cease the death of American soldiers and quickly put an end to the Pacific Front. Another scientist, Bertrand Russell, authored the Russell-Einstein Manifesto, which expressed concern of nuclear warfare by many leading scientists, including Einstein. These scientists proceed to create organizations whose objective is to eliminate nuclear weapons, such as Szilard's Council for a Livable World. Even though the exploration of nuclear energy led to many devastating consequences, there were many positive benefits which all stemmed from the Oak Ridge site. There were advancements in nuclear medicine like radiology, and exploration of using nuclear energy for civilian and naval use like nuclear-powered subs and nuclear power plants. It pushed the scientific capabilities of the nation and put America into close contact with other countries of both similar and opposing interests, an aspect that had the unfortunate consequence of inviting science into the political arena and shifted the global power dynamic forever.